welcome once again to the Digital Uplevel Summit. Today we have two very special guests with whom we will close this week that has been 100% about data. It is my honor to welcome Wei Wang, VP Director Data Sciences at Publicis Media, who is currently collaborating with data intelligence leaders all around the world, and Jen Ferracci, Executive Vice President, Data and Analysis at Digitas North America, with more than 12 years of experience as a strategist at Digitas. Today with them, you will learn all about how companies can use their own data to create strategies aimed at digital transformation. Here they are, Wei Wang and Jen Ferracci, everyone.
Hi, and welcome to our presentation today around how to build a best-in-class first-party data strategy. We have some great content for you today, and I hope that you enjoy it and have lots of questions for us. There are 6 sections to our presentation today, which we will talk through with you in just 1 second. Welcome back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties are a way of life these days. So let's get back into it. Let's start to talk about building a best-in-class first-party data strategy. There are 6 sections of our presentation to you today. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview first of data intelligence and who we are and what we do. We're going to talk about why first-party data matters, and then deep dive into what that means and how you start to activate that first-party data that you collect. We're going to talk about amplifying it using advanced analytics, challenges and how you apply it, as well as recommendations for how you start to evolve it for your own digital transformation purposes. So let's talk first about who we are. I'm Jen Ferrasi. I am the Global Analytics Services Lead here at Publicis. And with me today, I have Hui Wang. She is our Head of Global Analytics. We are part of the Global Data Intelligence team here at Publicis. And what that really means is it's the unification of research and analytics. A few years ago, we actually worked in separate teams from the research group. And what we found is that research and analytics were often asked to solve the same challenges, but come at it from different angles. And so we made the change to unify those two teams so that we can focus on building solutions versus building capabilities. Our goal really is to leverage all sorts of different data assets, big and small, and then apply both quantitative and qualitative approaches in order to deliver intelligence that helps to drive growth. We really focus a lot on impact through execution. Things like helping to identify optimal investment levels and mixes, generating efficiency through standardization, incubating and scaling best-in-class solutions, creating value through innovation, and building global communities of experts. We have a number of different solutions that range from things like customer intelligence, where we look at competitive advantage analyses, or we do custom consumer research, to data strategy and consulting, which is a lot of the things we're going to talk to you about today, to performance analytics and everything in between. So let's get into it. Why does first-party data matter? Before we talk specifically about first-party data, let's set the groundwork for the different kinds of data that actually exist in the world. There are 4 predominantly that we talk about. There's zero-party data, which is data that a customer intentionally and proactively shares with a brand, things like site opt-in or preference setting. There is first-party data, which is highly relevant data that we acquire about users based on interactions such as going to a website, making a purchase, or enrolling in a loyalty program. There's second-party data, which is data that we get access to from our partners. This is direct access to a trusted and source, like a publisher that we may run media on. And then there's third-party data. This is aggregated data that comes from numerous external sources that we, for the most part, purchase and use for targeting. This is things like affinity, intention, demographic data, those sorts of things. So each of these has different strengths and challenges. If we think about it on 2 scales, there's depth or precision of the data. How accurate is it? How high of fidelity does that data have? And then there's scale. How much of it do we have? And it ranges depending on which one that we're looking at. Zero-party data, for example, has the highest fidelity because it's opt-in, it's consumer provided, but it's very, very small from a scale perspective. On the other end of the spectrum, we have third-party data where there's a ton of it, but it's actually not highly accurate because it tends to come from static sources that are infrequently updated. Today, we're going to focus on first-party data, which we believe offers the best trade-off between value and fidelity and opportunity and scale. But don't just take our word for it. Other marketers agree. We've asked other marketers, this is from a Nielsen survey, where they asked other marketers which data sources are most important and looked at it based on budget size. And what you find is that unanimously, regardless of size, everyone says that first-party data is the most valuable type of data. Additionally, if you think about how data drives ROI, and we ask marketers the same question of which data sources are more likely to drive ROI, the answer is also unanimously first-party data. And why is that? So let's break it down into the value proposition of first-party data. First, it is very transparent and accurate. Because you're collecting it directly from consumer behaviors, and there's first-hand transparency into what you're collecting, that data, again, has very high fidelity. Secondly, it's high quality because mostly it's consumer opt-in, and as regulation continues, it becomes more and more opt-in based. That data is a very, very high quality. There's high value because it gives you access to both rich customer information as well as a range of different types of information. It's cost effective because it's yours. It's essentially free. You don't have to pay for it. You have control over the recency and frequency of the refresh of that data. And then lastly, it gives you both precision as well as flexibility. Because it is tied to individuals, it gives you the ability to cut and transform that data as needed and the flexibility to use it in the way that makes sense for your business. The importance of first-party data is only growing in response to regulation. We often get a lot of questions about how we think the technology and regulatory changes are going to impact the use of first-party data. But really what the impact of these changes are they are doubling down on the value and the importance of that first-party data because it's not necessarily tied to cookies either from a collection standpoint or a distribution standpoint. And it's something, again, that brands and businesses have within their own firewalls and that they have control over that will allow them to continue to reach their consumers in meaningful ways. So much so that it's underpinning all marketers' ability to future-proof. And again, if we look to the marketplace and what different marketers in different industries and different businesses are actually saying about future-proofing, there are two things that really come through in here. One is that the top 5 to 10 items that are listed as being crucial to future-proofing business are all related to first-party data, the ability to collect it, the ability to analyze it, and the ability to activate with it. You'll also notice that almost every single marketer has noted that they are planning to increase spending with an emphasis on the use of first-party data. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Hui to start to talk to you more about the specifics of how we use first-party data and the kinds of things we can do with it.
Thank you so much, Jane. Hello, my name is Hui Wang. In the next few sections, I'm going to talk about how brands can utilize first-party data and what might be the potential challenges. But before I dive in, I want to share a little bit about my background. Before I joined Publicis Media, I spent more than 8 years working on the customer data. The industries I worked on, including telecom, cable, insurance, and retail. So this topic is really dear to my heart. These are the 4 stages involving and analyzing first-party data. Brands need to acquire first-party data from different sources and develop a process to integrate those different sources. Once they have the right data infrastructures, they can analyze and deliver the customer intelligence, which will allow them to activate, and amplify to impact the business outcome. No brands get things right the first time, so need to continue to evaluate and evolve their methodologies. So what are the sources the brand need to think about to get the first-party data? There are dozens of different sources that provide high-quality first-party data. Some of them are more behavior-driven, like media exposure, engagement, your purchase. Some can capture their attitude, customer feedback, the consumer sentiment. And oftentimes, brands also need to capture their customers' communication preferences. First-party data doesn't always have to be at a grand individual level. It can be aggregated. However, the richest first-party data often involved some kind of identifications. There are two types of identifications. One is called personal identification information, which you might have heard PII. Depends on the countries where you are at. It might be different, but the most common ones are considered as name, mailing address, email, and the phone number. That being said, there are also other kind of identifier which doesn't involve PII, like the cookies, like IP, mobile device ID, that allows you to identify the anonymized users and integrate them all together. To integrate all the different sources into one place for analysis, it does involve more people, process, and the technologies. You need someone who figure out how to store, compute the right permissions. That is why you require to build a team with different talent skill set, consider different technology and techniques. And all this because analyze the first-party data sometimes also require teams to join the different type of third-party data so they can provide rich customer insight. The first-party data allows the brands to analyze and answer a variety of business questions. Some are more behavioral driven, some are sentiment, mapping into signal customer journeys. It also helps to inform strategies and help to quantify your investment. There are a lot of variety of questions the brand can answer. When I used to work on the customer teams, they're dedicated people who take a lot of ad hoc questions, provide the one-time analysis. But as questions become more repeatable, brand also need to build the dashboard to allow them to track and monitor change over time. Now with the right customer intelligence, brand need to figure out a plan to activate and amplify those intelligence. And a way to think about it is really focus on thinking about how to use your first-party data across the different key marketing flow. Utilize it for strategic planning in marketing acquisition as well as retentions. Answer questions like, what is the key driver to encourage the customer engagement? And also thinking about how to use it for particular outcome to impact the business. These are the typical questions digital media use first-party to answers, like retargeting customers, excluding customers who already purchased, look-alike model, personalized offer and messages. Sometimes the client utilize to improve their e-commerce shopping experience. And more sophisticated client also incorporate online and offline transaction into their multi-touch attributions for cross-channel optimization. The specific use case often depends on your business objective as well as your data maturity. In the future, we're going to see a lot of more partnership between brand and the publishers to activate the first-party data. The orange chart you see here is the overlap between the two. It will not only help the brands to engage their customers, it also helps them to use as a ground truth to predict what the behavior of the unknown customers. It can be used for model the conversions. Look at lookalike model based on the behavior signature, more advanced contextual targetings. And all this in the display world, the programmatic world, you can utilize customer bidding to optimize the process. This means that in the future, there will be considerations to provide the better governance to manage the partnership with different publishers as well as the technology platforms. But of course, of the overall variety use cases we just talked about, is also reflected in different various marketing survey. And I just highlighted 2 here. As you can see, the most common one is around audience targeting, as well as the campaign optimization and measurement. However, brands that can utilize first party across the different touch points also thinking about use it for predictive modeling, use it for personalized recommendation engine, as well as create a single customer view and predict the consumer future. Those are more advanced usage of the first-party data companies tend to see that first-party help them to drive higher revenue growth, as well as improve their cost efficiencies. That is why in the next section, we're going to talk about how to utilize first-party data, amplify it with advanced analytics. As we talked about, company use first-party data can really unlock the benefit across the different key business driver. It helps the company to acquire customer, expand their market share, to grow their revenue, to expand the customer share of a wallet, and help to retain the better customers and encourage the recommendation. In this process, oftentimes, brands can utilize different advanced analytics on different part of the customer journeys to improve customer value. And with all different techniques, oftentimes segmentations is the foundation. And that's why I'm going to share with you a little bit about the common segmentations for you to think of how to apply it in the marketing strategy. Demographic is the most common one, easy to understand, easy to apply. It's a foundational knowledge. It's oftentimes you need to combine with the third-party data to get the basic information. However, they tend to less rich customer information, so not so ideal for personalization. That is why brand also looking into segmented customer based on how they consume their products. This is great for one-on-one segmentations and provide a lot of context about the customer behavior. That being said, it's lack the deep insight on consumer mindset. That's why clients also often develop the kind of a psychographic segmentation. They utilize survey data combined with other behavioral data to segment the customers based on their attitude, based on their motivation, or even lifestyle. This is great to inspire creativity because it provides more cultural relevancy. However, when you put using psychographic segmentations built from survey into the whole customer base, it does require actual efforts, allows you to do one-on-one targeting. The last one I want to talk about is various segmentation. It's the basis on group the customer basis on how they impact your revenue growth. The most common one you heard in a lot of CPG company is called RFM segmentation, recency, frequency, and monitoring. And most sophisticated clients actually will build into something called the customer lifetime value, that they project the customer lifetime, usually in 3 to 5 years, and often including cost of acquisitions or cost to serve into their projections. This is the model helps with strategic planning. But one thing I want to call out is actually when you utilize it for marketing communication, it requires you to do actual profiling analysis for targeting and communication. Predictive model is something you can layer over the segmentation to drive the value, further drive the value to your business. What I meant here by predictive modeling is an algorithm that calculates propensity of customers' behavior, like purchase, cancel, recommendation, or click. You can use it for existing customer or for your prospect. Most of the time, most common technique involved some kind of a supervised learnings that involve the behavior that you want to predict, as well as the attribute you use for predictions, what we sometimes call output and input variables. The last thing I want to call about to consider is in predictive modeling in marketing communication is before you deploy the model into your communications, always make sure you assess the accuracy and the robustness of the model, because it impacts not just the campaign ROI, but also the customer experience. There are a variety of advanced techniques that you can apply. You can start by simple descriptive analysis, which means that you would quantify, gather a very rich customer data and analyze, provide this basic insight. I'm going to show you later on examples about even this descriptive analysis can be very powerful to help to guide the strategies. Cluster and decision trees are two common ones that you can use for segmentation. Logistic regressions, random forest, are the ones that use for propensity model. Market basket as well as recommendation engines are the ones help the marketers to provide product personalization. Of course, the most advanced ones use more dynamic approach, like machine vision, help you to process the images your client, your brand customer share with you. Natural language processing help you to analyze a survey or customer call so as to better serve them. In the next few slides, I'm going to give you a few examples about how to go about using those techniques. The first one I'll talk about is segmentation. As you can see, this is a common approach, right? You ingest a different type of data from demographic, behavior, value, preferences, and use some kind of survey data to capture the attitude. Then you group and cross-segment the customers into different segments. One thing very important to call out is that it's not just to cross the customer. More importantly is you have to have your analysts as well as the marketing strategists working together to define the different communication strategy and the very propositions for different segments so that you can truly provide more relevant product or messages to each individual segments. The next one is an example from a B2B company utilizing custom score. So this is a company that their customer usually comes to their website and leave the message and expect the company to call them to close the deal. But which customers to call, right? Customer services call is not inexpensive. So our agency helped the client to develop a propensity model, identify the sales calls that are most likely to convert so that the salespeople can prioritize those calls first. They also determined what's the most ideal callback at the time so that to make sure is that the sales team prioritize their resources. As a result, you can see the model actually helped the clients to drive more conversion with the existing same sales resources. The next example is recommendation engines for manufactured companies. Most of those manufacturers companies that have shoppers that probably prefer to shop online, and therefore they often see the lower e-commerce purchase rate. So our agency developed market basket analysis to identify the products that consumers like to buy together so they can send out relevant email, provide recommend similar products. Or when consumers come to the site, they can serve the products that most relevant to their preference, based on their previous shopping behavior. And as a result, they see a lot of the lift coming back to the e-commerce site to purchase conversion rate. The last one I shared is also about the personalizations. But the reason I want to share this one is this is an example that sometimes you don't need to apply the advanced modeling techniques to really utilize first party for customer engagement. As based as this descriptive analysis, exploratory analysis can help to inform segmentations and the life cycle strategy. And once you have this groundwork built established, then you can start to build machine learnings for more one-on-one marketing recommendation. This all sounds great, right? But there are challenges in using like first party. In amplifying the business, it's actually not as easy. This is a different variety of the surveys from the different sources. You can see that most of the companies, a lot of companies find that they have a hard time to collect the integrated data. Only 28% of global respondents say the first party data is significantly or fully utilized. So this seems to indicate the brand advisor often have the hard time to have the confidence to feel like they are utilizing the first party well. What are the reasons? There are 4 fundamental challenges to harness the power of the first party data. And I'm going to go through each one of them now. Challenge number 1 is about more awareness about privacy. Consumer nowadays will stop shopping from a company if they have any concern about the way company protect their privacy. As a result, you'll see a lot of a push on the regulation. The chart I show you here is from United Nations. Currently, 66% of the countries in UN actually have some kind of a regulation in place to protect the data and the privacy. I want to call out, though, the number here is general data privacy law, so not only related to personal data like GDPR or CCPA. But we definitely see a stronger trend going to that directions that make it difficult for the company to collect and utilize the data. Second challenge is about data quality and accuracy and the technologies. Many brands reflect that, especially larger brands, they say data accuracy is a bigger challenge. And part of the reason is oftentimes those big brands with a big budget has a lot of more data resources. The way to harmonize the data often is a challenge. Oftentimes, 64% of the marketers find this very time-consuming to manage the data, integrate and formatting those data. Technology integration is another huge barrier. As a result, we also find it's hard to scale the customer data, first-party data, and match rate that often used to match into the digital marketing tends to be low. These are the two top of the challenges that impact its utilization. Transactional data is a very rich data that a brand can utilize. That being said, called out is the industry need to, us marketers need to recognize that the ability to collect rich transactional data varied by industries. As you can see from this chart, those industries that have more access to customer transactional data tend to have more touch points along the customer journey and more direct relationship with the consumer. That is why nowadays you hear a lot of companies try to build more direct relationship channel. Part of the reason is to capture more customer data. The third tier challenge utilizing first-party data is the talents. Boston Consulting Group, the survey in APAC shows 40% of the marketer believe lack of the talents and the team setup is the top barrier. The chart here is interesting things to think about. While nowadays there's a lot of talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and they are indeed talents hard to find. But the most difficult, the one that difficult to find and also have high demand, therefore more competitions in talents acquisitions, is the one that requires statistics, requires data visualizations. Last one I want to share with you of the challenge is the silo. 37% of market IT decision makers believe that the reason they cannot create a single customer view is because of the data silo. So why data silos? Well, 70% believe that it is because of the organization silo. Many people, as a person who spent a lot of time working on the first-party data, I can definitely share with you that it is not the technology, but the people, process, and the cultural that is what makes organizations difficult to become a truly data-driven organizations. So what the solution is? Now I'm going to share back to Jen to tell you what are the things you can consider to evolve your first-party data strategies.
Thank you, Hui. We're not going to leave you with a bunch of problems. We're going to give you some solutions as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you can put some things in place to help evolve your first-party data strategy. We have 4 recommendations on how you start to evolve yours. The first is to develop a trust framework so that you can collect first-party data in a way that is transparent as well as adheres to regulatory requirements. The second is to invest in the 3 T's. You heard Hui just talk about some of these things. They are talent, technology, and team collaboration. The third is to align customer needs to business needs. And then lastly, to establish a roadmap to your own data maturity. So let's talk about what each of these mean. First, a trust framework. Developing a trust framework to enable first-party data collection. The 3 components of a trust framework are these. 1, it's about value exchange. It's not about transaction, but it's actually more about customer experiences and value and ensuring that there is a value to the consumer with them sharing their data with you. The second is transparency. So making sure that you explain why you are collecting data and how you are going to be using it, communicating that in a simple and easy way that is very easy for consumers to understand, and being proactive if there are any issues. The third is consumer consent. So making sure that you have the appropriate mechanism to not only collect the data, but also to give consumers control over what data you have and don't have and allow them to opt out when they so choose. Adopting a consent management platform will allow you to be able to do this. And across all of these, I would say there's sort of underpinned by this iterative test and learn approach. Experiment to make sure that the approaches that you're using are the right ones and that they're achieving the trust that you're trying to create with consumers. Adhering and staying on top of all the privacy and regulatory trends like GDPR and CCPA, and now the biometric regulations that are starting to come out will further reinforce that trust that you build with consumers and help you to build that direct relationship that allows you to enrich your understanding of them over time. The second is to invest in your talent, your technology, and your team culture. We're going to talk a little bit more about each of these in the subsequent slides. Let's start with technology. There are a number of different core technologies that allow you to collect and harness the power of first-party data. At the core of it is identity resolution. So this is the process of combining multiple identifiers across the digital and offline ecosystem, as well as devices, in order to truly build that omni-channel view of your consumer. The second is a customer data platform. This is essentially a warehouse that lets you collect customer data and unify it from all of those different sources in one location. A consent management platform, which I just talked about in the trust framework. This is what allows you to collect the data, but also provides consumers with control over what data you collect and when they want you to or don't want you to collect that data. It also helps you to manage the consent of that data to downstream ad partners. And then the last one is a clean room. And this is technology that allows you to share aggregated data in a way that lets you start to analyze and glean insights without personal data ever leaving the original systems. It allows for privacy compliancy, and it starts to eliminate the reliance on cookie matching that has been so prevalent in our industry to date. A little bit more about clean rooms, just because we know that they're important and very much a hot topic in this industry. And what it is. I gave you a bit of an overview, right, in terms of it is a data platform where brands and technology partners can sort of coexist to analyze their data together. But really, they're distinguished from other data sharing methods because of the inclusion of the detailed advertising event level data. This essentially allows you to look at the most granular types of data available, but do so in a privacy compliant, privacy safe manner. There are two different kinds of clean rooms. There are walled gardens, and then there are open activation. They both come with their benefits and challenges. Obviously, walled gardens, you may get higher fidelity and access to second party data versus within others. The third is around, the difference between walled gardens and open clean rooms is a few things. One, it's the data types, where on one end you have user supplied data, and on the other hand, you may have a combination of purchased and owned data. It's data ownership. In the walled gardens, they are platform owned, versus in the open clean rooms, they are advertiser owned. They have different identity solutions. The walled gardens, it's about opt-in PII or NPII. They're persistent, they're accurate. On the open clean rooms, you have both as well. The biggest difference is where the actual ID resolution sits. From a measurement standpoint, in the walled gardens, you have user level data, and it tends to be limited to that platform or one derivative from that platform, whereas within the open clean rooms, you have omni-channel third-party data that is also auditable. And then from a transparency perspective, in the walled gardens, you get aggregated data only, whereas in the open clean rooms, you have access to all of the available data and analytics. So let's talk a little bit more about consent management as well. These tools are evolving, especially as regulations evolve and compliance arms evolve. And really, they are intended to be a compliance arm for advertisers to manage consumer privacy preferences. They allow you to connect into the different industry associations for digital marketing and for the advertising ecosystem. Most well-known CMPs are starting to evolve beyond the pure privacy preference management, and they're actually becoming overarching privacy management solutions that will also help you to operationalize data privacy as well as compliance strategy. Let's talk about the next T, talent. There are three sort of foundational types of talent that are critical to being able to activate your first party data strategy. One is math and statistics skills, which help promote accuracy and reliability of your analyses. One is computer science skills, which help with things like integration and driving scale. And the last is domain knowledge, which is about innovation and application development. So when you're thinking about recruiting talent and building a team, there are a few key things that you should consider. One is to make sure that you are recruiting diverse talent. You want a range of both skill sets as well as backgrounds. Those are the types of things that will allow you to make the most out of your first party data. You want to make sure that you're upskilling your talent and also recognizing that different people have different styles of learning. So providing access to training in different formats and different kinds will help to grow your talent pool, but also make sure your talent feels fulfilled. You should encourage cross-pollination. People who have skills that sit in multiple buckets tend to be more productive and have more ability to drive use cases over time. And you want to enable those people with the right tools, make them as efficient as possible in order to unlock their capabilities. And then lastly, engage them in projects that challenge them. And then the last T is team collaboration. You want to make sure that you are investing in and creating systems and processes that facilitate that collaboration. You want to set objectives, you want to align your stakeholders, and you want to promote agility. All of this results in a holistic understanding of your consumers. The third is to align on consumer and business needs. You want to map your activation plans with both the customer journey and your business objectives, the result of which it will ensure that you are driving both revenue as well as share and creating a positive ROI for your efforts. This allows you to create different methods to collect data along the journey depending on where you're at, unifying that data then to understand the full end-to-end journey within that customer view. Underpin that with experimentation to make sure that you're test and learning into amplification and then measuring the impact and scaling it in an agile way. And then the last is establishing a clear roadmap to data maturity. You want to start by assessing your current state. Who is responsible for activation? Who in the organization do they engage with in order to do that? What are they doing? So both in terms of what types of data assets are available, what proportion of your organization's total customers are currently known, and what first-party data use cases you already have. And then the last one is how. How are you collecting data? How is it currently being used? How is it integrated? Is it integrated at all? And what are the different touch points in that journey we just talked about that it's currently activated in? Assessing your current state will then help you prioritize where you need to invest for future state. So as we think about what that roadmap looks like, we want to make sure that you consider the core elements that are required within it. This means data sources, data integration and governance, organization and culture, customer intelligence, and activation. And assessing where you're at, whether you're low on the maturity spectrum or high on the maturity spectrum for each one of them. From there, you can establish your roadmap to where you want to be, both in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. On the screen, we have an example of the Publicis Digital Maturity Index. This is a tool we have available that allows us to help understand where different brands and businesses fall on the maturity scale, and help to understand how we can start to move them from, for example, a tactical marketer to an advanced marketer, and what that time frame might look like. And with that, we are going to open it up to questions. We'll just wait for them to pop into our chat.
Yes.
All right. Well, it sounds like we don't have any questions. So with that, we will just leave you with a thank you. And, oh, wait, we do have a question. One question says, hi there. I was wondering what kind of tools or techniques are the most recommended to gather this type of data? Hui, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, it's really a tough question because again, this is oftentimes depends on the maturity models you have, right? The very basic ones you have is really thinking about how you can build a CRM data to start to collect those informations at the front end, at the touch point. You also need to have a data warehouse, whether it is more on premises or more like a cloud service. You need to consider that. We also talked about things like CDP, which is similar to data warehouse, but allows you to digest and activate data in a more integrated way. So there are specific solutions, the brand like Azure or Google Cloud Service or Amazon's as the data cloud solution you can consider. But oftentimes, really, you need to have an assessment, like Jen talked about, be able to identify the right tool and technology for you.
I would say too, what technology you want to use will depend on two things. It will depend on your industry and the types of customer data that you're trying to collect. And then secondly, it would depend on where you fall in that data maturity spectrum, which technology you need at a point in time as your business grows. We have another question, which is, how can this data be managed or handled in a country with no established rules for its collection? So that's a tough one. There's the how, and then there's the should you, right? So in a lot of countries, there's much stricter regulation, and then in some there's none. I would say first, right, you would need to abide by whatever your local regulations are. And then the next question to ask would be, just because there's not a regulation to do it, is it something that we think we should be doing as a business and an organization? The technology to do it is the same, regardless of the rules and regulation. It's more about your own internal processes and risk tolerance that I think would inform that.
I cannot agree more.
Next question. How can I start a career in data science? I'm going to let Hui answer this one.
This is an interesting question. I'll share my observations and recommendations, and Jen definitely can chime in as she lead a big analytics practice as well. You know, it's actually schooling is secondary. You know, I've seen people from a variety of background, including English majors, eventually build their way in the field of data scientist. And over the time, it is about learning. And your first step might not be a fancy data scientist. It could be account managers, right, who utilize marketing. But over time, as you build that skill set, you identify the opportunity, say, I am going to help my team to automate a report or create better visualizations. And as that way, you eventually build up your skills and potentially take additional courses or even advanced degree to further advance that skill set and become more like full-time data scientist. That is my recommendations. Jane, how about you?
I agree with that. I would say there would be two things to do. So one is to build your skills and do that in whatever manner works for you. That could mean taking classes. It could mean they have boot camps now that are sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 3 months to learn the fundamentals. So learn, build your skills. And then the second I would say is to join an organization that will help support your goal to become a data scientist and give you the opportunities to do that kind of work, to work on projects that are practical applications of it, and then just from there, learn and grow. All right, not seeing any more questions. So I think we can go back to our thank you. So thank you for joining us today. I hope that you found the content useful. Thank you for letting us spend an hour with you and talk about a subject that we are both very, very passionate about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Whoa, what a great talk. Thank you so much, Wei and Jen. I am in awe of everything you just shared with us, and I am sure everyone who connected with you today filled their notebooks with all this knowledge about how to use data. For all of our attendees today, remember that the Digital Uplevel Summit is not over yet. During the next week, all the strategic minds and media experts await for you. You can schedule the talk you want to attend by entering uplevel.byprodigious.com. And if you want to see this week's talks again, you can find them all on our YouTube channel, Prodigious Latin America. Do not forget also to follow us on Instagram and Facebook as Prodigious Latam so you don't miss anything about this great event. See you soon.